2016 was by far the busiest year of my life, and as a result, I didn't necessarily get to play every game I wanted to this year, let alone upload enough videos, which I am really sorry about that. Most specifically, I am really bummed out that I never got around to play The Last Guardian. Team Ico may have only created 2 other games before this, and they were both admittedly PS2 titles, but Ico and Shadow of the Colossus are 2 of my favorite games of all time, and I highly recommend them if you haven't played them before. And as a result, I feel almost ashamed of myself as a fan for missing out on The Last Guardian this year. All that said, I was still fairly content with the lineup of games I was able to play in 2016, with a few being nothing short of outstanding. Here's hoping 2017's even better, but in the meantime, I highly recommend you dig into any of the following games. A strong sense of style and aesthetic really goes a long way in game development, and perhaps no other release this year proved this more than Inside. If you played 2010's Limbo, then you can easily grasp what this game is about, because they essentially made another one of those. It's a side-scrolling puzzle game that relies heavily upon its dark and mature overtones, and it's all backed by an outstanding art direction. However, being derivative of the previous game doesn't make it bad at all, because Inside improves on Limbo in almost every way possible. While it's by no means a perfect game, I found some puzzles to be tedious, and the ending was more bizarre to me than profound. It was still an experience this year that I won't be forgetting anytime soon, and I highly recommend it.
Super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot, super.
Superhot is a 3-hour gimmick, but it's an awesome gimmick. It's an odd mix of a first-person shooter and a puzzle game, but Superhot manages to make it work in conjunction with each other. Each time I finished a level, I simultaneously felt accomplished and like an absolute badass. While the actual length of the game may be on the short side, I think any longer may have been overkill, and it seems the developers knew where to draw the line here. Throw in a surprisingly interesting narrative, and I may just say it's the most innovative shooter I've played in years. Dark Souls 3 was the first game in the franchise that I stuck with long enough to actually finish, for whatever that's worth. I found the environments to be more enjoyable to experience overall, as the level design brought back the Metroidvania exploration that had been missing in Dark Souls 2, not to mention that From Software crafted some of the most memorable creature designs to date. I may be personally finished with this style of game, as the market is just becoming saturated in my opinion, but I am glad to see that at least one Dark Souls game managed to capture my attention enough before the franchise officially concluded. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 will forever live in the shadow of its predecessor, and as a result, I feel it's received a bit of an unfair reception. Now, I'm not going to say it's better than the first game, it's just different, and I applaud them for taking the fundamentals of Pac-Man in yet another cool direction. I love the speed and precision that comes in the sequel, and it was perfect for any time I also wanted to listen to a podcast or music while at my computer. I can't tell you if I'll ever even return to it, but I know that I did greatly enjoy the time that I did spend with it. I think Titanfall 2 confirmed that I'm personally just about finished with competitive multiplayer games, at least for the time being. I played a few matches here and there, but the drive is just not there for me anymore. However, what did draw me into Titanfall 2 this year over most titles was its surprisingly exceptional campaign. It managed to cram great characters, fun weapons, and unforgettable level design into a single package, completely blowing away my expectations. My only complaint is that I wish there was more to this, but I understand that the multiplayer is the main selling point for most people. Maybe I'm the only one who actually enjoyed the campaign more than the multiplayer package, but I can tell you with certainty that I'm equally as excited to see what Respawn could do with a Titanfall 3. Final Fantasy 15 is such a bizarre game. The best way I can describe it is that it feels like a jumbled mess of a ton of different ideas thrown into a box with Final Fantasy traditions in it. But I love it. It looks like Square Enix took the complaints people had with 13 and ran away with it in the complete opposite direction. That said, this is the only game on this list I haven't beaten yet at the time of writing this, so who knows how I'll feel about it afterward. But I'm truly enjoying it 20 hours in, and this is coming from a huge fan of all eras of Final Fantasy. Hyper Light Drifter has a certain sincerity going for it that I really appreciate. From the melancholy presentation to its extremely well-composed soundtrack, you can tell that this world was crafted with precision, and it all just makes more sense with the autobiographical nature of designer Alex Preston's chronic heart condition, which is reflected in the game itself. However, there's more than that to the quality of Hyper Light Drifter, as it would be criminal not to also include the exhilarating combat and its Zelda-esque elements. I'm well aware that it's not for every person, but it certainly gets my vote as the best indie game of 2016. If you haven't played or even heard of this game, but it looks like it'll be right up your alley, then just go for it and buy it, because it is well worth your time. I've always been a huge fan of stealth games, and that definitely includes the Hitman franchise. So when I say that Hitman 2016 is the best yet in that franchise, you know that it's high praise. It's never been more welcoming for newcomers and veterans, allowing for pure silent assassin runs as well as goofy shenanigans. I feel like so many skipped over this game for the sheer fact that it was episodic, and I truly think this format was only beneficial for it. These levels were dense and large enough for you to dig into them multiple times, completing a plethora of challenges at a balanced pace. Not to mention that the episodic format gave us the elusive targets, which was nothing but an excellent way to keep up player engagement throughout the year. Plus, what other game allows you to kill Gary Busey? I rest my case. The more I reflect upon The Witness, the more I like it. I'm reminded of just how ingenious its puzzles were throughout, and how satisfying it was to finally solve something that had me stumped for hours or even days. It may just be the most intellectual game I've ever played, and I applaud The Witness for actually making me feel both incredibly smart and like a complete idiot many times throughout my 20-hour trek. The Witness, to me, is a near flawless execution of level design, and I think that anyone looking into game development should learn from it and study it. It may have been a long wait in between the launch of Braid, designer Jonathan Blow's last release, and this, but to say it was worth the wait would be an understatement, because this game truly is incredible. I've always been a fan of the Uncharted franchise, but for some reason, Uncharted 4 grabbed my attention significantly more than all the other entries combined. Maybe it was the improved mechanics, the more personal and elaborate story, or possibly just the fact that it's the perfect goodbye to such a solid series. Naughty Dog gave the saga of Nathan Drake a definitive ending, and the result is easily the character's most memorable adventure of all. From the use of alternating flashbacks to some of the best written dialogue I've ever seen in a video game, Uncharted 4 just had me glued to the screen. It wasn't just the story either that had me hooked, as I was determined to play through the entirety of the game on crushing the highest difficulty and obtain every collectible. I even completed my own separate speed run to unlock the Platinum Trophy. I can't think of the last game to make me go crazy like that, just over a set of achievements. All that said, it does still kind of suck that the multiplayer is still a painfully mediocre addition, but that obviously doesn't hinder the overall product in the end. Now, I think it's worth noting that there aren't many other franchises that have created the mass appeal that the Uncharted series has, especially within its relatively short lifespan. It combines elements of commonplace shooters, platformers, and adventure games, all wrapped around an Indiana Jones-esque story that ultimately provides at least a little bit of something for nearly every player. Uncharted 4 is very clearly the finale for these characters, and the package they're thrown into may just be the most outstanding console exclusive of the generation thus far. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is my game of the year for 2016. What's yours?